Hello and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who'd like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you. Hello, I'm Tom Dillon, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Helen Leathers. Good morning, Helen. How are you?
Good morning, Tom. I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
How are you?
I'm on top of the world.
Fabulous.
I have the Carpenters song in my head. I don't know why, but that's something, as we were preparing, it suddenly came into my mind. So, yeah.
Lovely.
I'm on top of the world. Yeah, that's how I am today.
Fabulous.
Good. What are we talking about today, Helen?
Today is one of our listeners' question sessions.
A Q&A.
A Q&A. So
Good.
we have some questions that have come in.
Lovely. Okay, what's the first question on our list?
The first question, this is from Dan.
Yeah.
And Dan would like to know, is there a requirement for me to have supervision as a coach?
Okay, Dan, you're asking close questions. No is the answer. Move on. What's the next question? No, we will cover it in a little bit more detail. No, there isn't a requirement. Coaching is an unregulated industry, so there's no requirement to do anything. If you belong to a coaching organisation and have accreditation through a coaching organisation, it may well be a requirement of your accreditation that you are in supervision.
Yes.
And quite often we work a lot with the Association for Coaching, and one of their requirements is that you have to have 1 hour of supervision for every 15 hours of coaching that you do.
Kind of. They've just changed it.
Oh, damn, I'm behind the times.
So they've just changed. So if you're going for foundation coach, you have to have had 3 sessions of coaching in the last 12 months, but it will usually be about 1 session every other month if you work it out on that ratio.
But depending on how much coaching you're doing.
Yeah.
Good. So there you are. That's new to me. You heard it here first. So most of the major coaching organisations will have some requirement for some supervision. Although I think the ICF don't. They use mentoring rather than supervision.
So the ICF have a requirement that you have a coach mentor.
Yes. I'm not sure why I'm answering this question because you know far more about it than I do. So ICF is coach mentoring. Do we know what the MCC is?
That's supervision, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So most organisations will have some requirement for supervision if you're going to be accredited. Now, I don't know what the latest statistics are about accreditation, but I would suggest the vast majority of coaches are not accredited. They are qualified, they are certified, but they're not accredited by a coaching body. So if there are any coaches out there that aren't accredited, then there is no requirement for supervision.
But it's a good idea, isn't it?
It's good practice. It is best practice to have some supervision. I've been having supervision for many years now. I have a supervisor that I get along with. It's a safe space for me to go and talk about my coaching. There's no judgment on his part. I might go and talk about a tricky coaching client and perhaps talk about my interventions and what I've done and how that's worked out. And I know that that's a safe space to talk about all of that there is no judgment. So, I will talk to him about other stuff. So 3 elements I take to supervision. One is my development as a coach. And after 15 years, I'm still developing as a coach. So I still want to explore that. What's going on in the coaching room? So I'll talk about that. But also the development of my business and how that's all happening. So again, those are 3 elements that I always say, these are potential things that I'll want to talk about. I don't talk about all of them necessarily, but yeah. So what's your take on it, Helen?
I absolutely agree. I think that it's really useful for questions that come into your mind. How might I deal with this situation, or how might I deal with this topic? You can't rely on our podcast necessarily all the time. So it might be something that you take to supervision. But one of the things that I think can be really useful is if a supervisor offers this, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, to share with them a recording, audio or video, of your coaching and get feedback on your coaching so that you can see where you're going right, where you need some improvement and that kind of thing. Otherwise, people don't see where you're going with your coaching.
Yeah, and I think this leads into the fact that it would be good to do a podcast on supervision.
Absolutely.
Because I think there are different elements. So there's that normative aspect, supportive aspect. There are different aspects that come to supervision.
Yeah.
And, I always used to argue, because people talk about, and certainly with my supervisor, Bob, has never seen me coach, although he did listen to the podcast that we did where I coached you, and he had some feedback.
Did he?
And there's something he said. Oh, you clearly knew something about Helen's situation before, and I'm not sure what part of the podcast he was referring to. I don't think there was. I think it was quite a clear. But there you see, already someone's giving me some feedback, and I'm going, well, I'm not sure about that. So it was quite challenging to get feedback, and it wasn't a formal supervision session. But I think definitely, as a new coach, it's good to get some feedback. So whether you do that through co-coaching groups, where you go and the coaches will give you that feedback, or whether your supervisor does that for you, or you have a coach mentor, whatever availability you have for someone to perhaps observe a coaching session or see a recording of a coaching session, then I think it's really useful to get that feedback. Yes. But a lot of supervisors won't be offering that.
No, so it's worth...
Or they probably would offer it if you ask them to do it. So there is a two-way thing there.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point, that we'll cover supervision on another podcast
because obviously
more detail.
Ethical issues will come into it as well. So if you've got an ethical concern about any client, then again, that's something else you can take to supervision.
Yeah. I think that's a key part of it, isn't it? An ethical dilemma.
So I think the answer to the question, Dan, is... no, it's not a requirement, but it is good practice, and we would strongly recommend that you do find yourself a supervisor. We are both supervisors, so feel free to drop us a line. We'd be happy to talk to you, have a chemistry session with you. But yes, definitely it's something to think about.
Fabulous. What's the next question that we have, Tom?
So the next question comes from Alice, who is a GP, who says, what could I use to identify core values with a coaching client? I'm not one of your alumni, but I love the podcast.
Oh, that's nice.
Welcome, Alice. Good to have you with us.
Absolutely. Values. Well, now I know a really great tool for values.
What's the really great tool that you know for values, Helen?
Well, you'll find it on our website, and it's your set of values cards.
Yay!
So if you are working face-to-face with a client, a really great tool is to have a set of values cards, and you've created a lovely set of values and strengths cards in combination, and that could be used with your client. We've got some resources in the pack and online explaining how to use them. So that's one thing. But if you're working online on Zoom, as most of us are these days, or a lot of us are these days, then you might not find that as easy.
And actually, I really like your approach. So I have a couple of different tools that I use. So one of them is a grid that replaces the coaching cards. But you work in a very pure coaching sense around values, don't you?
I do.
And you just ask people what's important to them.
So, Tom, in the context of your life, what's important to you?
Chocolate.
No, what I do is I explain what values are first, otherwise you get chocolate. So I explain what values are, and one of my key elements is that values are things that you can't put in a wheelbarrow. So explain what they are, explain the fact that they're filters through which we see everything, they drive our motivations, that kind of thing. And then I ask that question. And I ask that question a number of times until we often have a list of about 20 elements that are important to someone, and then we explore them, work out the core values from there. So simply ask the question, I think, is a really good starting point. But you have to then leave lots of space and not interrupt and not assume they've got to the end of their thinking. Because if you just hear someone say, oh, well, it's love and honesty and trust, and you think that they're done, then they're really not done. You have to give them lots and lots of space. Don't interrupt. And if you need to ask another question, simply ask the same question again.
Very good. Yeah.
So, just simple coaching can really be helpful there. So that's a good starting point.
Yeah. I think that's probably enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we could overcomplicate this a little bit by giving lots of tools that people
That's
could
it.
use. So buy my coaching cards is one tool. So that's good advice, I think. And then just ask people what's important to them.
Yeah.
What's our next question, Helen?
Our next question comes from Anna, Anna is a GP, loves the podcast, which is great. I have a client who's asked me to provide some group coaching at his GP surgery. How similar is this to one-to-one coaching, and what do I need to consider?
It's very similar and very different, all in the same thing. So obviously, a coaching conversation with a coach is a confidential space. That's how you show up, and people can speak freely and without fear of judgment. And I guess people will always worry a little bit about whether the coach is going to judge them. But on the whole, you have that trust, you have that rapport. Obviously, when people come to a group coaching session, it is just an open group. So people will show up however they show up. So I think people are a little bit more reserved when they show up to a group coaching session, because there is that sort of fear of judgment of the group. But we can still do good work in group coaching. And obviously, we do quite a bit of work with people training to be health coaches, and there may well be the opportunity for them to do some group health coaching work. So that's really useful to give some thought to how that might work.
Can we just clarify that group coaching is different to team coaching?
We can, yes. It is different.
It is different,
so
isn't it?
I do both. So team coaching I see as members of a particular team that perhaps have common objectives, common goals, common values within an organisation. So they're all heading in the same direction. I think group coaching is different because we might have a topic, let's say...
Health.
Health is a topic that... I mean, weight loss maybe could be a specific area of health. So everyone's coming, so there is a common goal in the sense that everyone will be working at their own pace, and it really doesn't matter how long you take to reach your objective compared to someone else. Whereas with a team, you all want to get there at the same pace, really. You all want to be working together. So you're perhaps working on exercises and activities within group coaching, but sort of doing the work in isolation, but with the guidance of the coach.
Yes.
So that's probably a good distinction, that you will be working and you might have conversations with the other people in the group, and you might buddy up with them on certain things, but you are working as an individual.
Yes.
But within a group context where what you say out loud is going to be heard by other people. So I think it is different. We're actually going to run a workshop, masterclass on group coaching. So keep an eye out for that. Have a look at our website. And if you're interested in group coaching, then that's a great place to start. I think there are differences and things that it would be really good for you to think about before you suddenly go, oh, well, I'm a trained coach, I'll do group coaching.
Yeah, I don't think you can automatically take
it
one
requires
into the
some
other.
thought, some planning, some preparation in the way that a individual coaching session wouldn't necessarily. We're both very emergent coaches, so we just turn up and, what would you like to talk about today? Whereas if we're coaching a group of people, we need to do a bit more preparation and be ready for the group.
So thank you, Anna, for your question. Really great question. And look out for our masterclass that we'll be running on that.
Yeah, be on the website.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom.
Lovely. Thank you. Enjoyed that today. Another question and answer session completed. So thank you. Next time on the podcast, we will be looking at another challenge around coaching, which is...
accreditation and the accreditation
Lovely.
Process.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I shall look forward to that. We will see you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.